Hi y'all, it's Heather with Reflecting Inward Life Coaching, and today I wanted to share with you a couple of experiences that I've had recently and how they can help everyone. No matter who is watching this, chances are you're going to be able to relate in some way, and if you can't, it's probably because you're not getting outside of your comfort zone, outside of the normal environment that you are used to. When we start to engage with people outside of the normal environment that we're in, we start to have interactions that sometimes can be uncomfortable because, well, we have different perspectives based upon our experiences, and when we share those perspectives, a lot of times people don't agree, and that can cause some problems. So this video is about how intentions influence energy, as well as how energy influences our emotions. And when this happens, it can cause social problems. And I also wanted to talk about, how I in particular dealt with these situations, and maybe that can help you see a different perspective and help you with your next potential exchange. So some of the key terms or words in this video are going to be emotional intelligence, comfort zone, amygdala, unconscious insecurities, energy, perspective, intentions, emotions, and conflict resolution. So the first story I want to share with you. Recently I have had the opportunity to stay in a couple of hostels, and I actually love staying in hostels because you meet people from all over the world. You get to exchange different thoughts and different ideas and talk about what life is like in other countries and learn, and I love that. And in this particular hostel that I was at, actually both of these examples happened in the same hostel. And the first one, there was a Hispanic man. He was probably about 25 to 30, and I'm a pretty open person. I will start a conversation with just about anyone and learn about them, where they come from, and I believe in community, as you've probably seen in some of my other videos. I believe that we're here to support and help each other, and that we can do that when we know more about each other and what each other needs. So that being said, as soon as this man came sit down next to me, I felt like almost like I was retreating into myself. I did not feel open. I did not feel like I should be engaging with this person. He sat there for a couple of minutes on his phone, and then he got up and went outside. And he sat just outside in a chair where, when I turned my head to the right, I could see him, and I could see that he was just sitting there staring at me. And so I looked over and saw him and looked back, and every time I glanced over, he was sitting there staring at me. Kind of made me a little uncomfortable, but I just kind of moved my head out of the way so he couldn't see me as well, and kept doing my thing. And eventually he came back in, sat down, and he seemed to somewhat uncomfortably engage in conversation with me. And I still didn't feel like I should be, encouraging this conversation, so I politely answered a couple of his questions, where it was from, how long I was staying there, and then I thought to myself, oh, Heather, you believe in treating everyone the same, so why are you treating this person any different? Just be polite, ask him a question. So I did, and immediately felt uncomfortable, and he asked me a couple more questions, and then somewhat he said, are you married? And I kind of hesitated, and I thought, well, there's no reason to really lie at this point. So I said, no, I'm not. And he got this big old grin on his face, like he was happy or excited. And then he was quiet again for another minute or two, and then he looked up on me and he said, has anyone ever told you how sexy you are? And I froze, like my whole body was like an ice cube. I just froze. And I was thinking, I don't know how to respond to this. What's the best way to respond to this? And eventually I just said, I'm sorry, that's really inappropriate. You may have meant it as a compliment, but you just met me. And a comment like that is just not appropriate. And he apologized, and after a few minutes he got up and left. The second conversation I had actually was with a young woman that I had spent a little bit of time building a friendship with. We had talked about a lot of different things, a lot of different beliefs, and the way that we see the challenges of the world and how we want to pursue helping rectify some of those challenges that we see. We had a lot in common. We had a lot of views in common. We had even slightly talked a little bit about how we could join forces and create a somewhat of a career business plan to help each other. And she was really into tarot, and so she did a tarot reading for me. And in the midst of that tarot reading, we kind of joked slightly and lightly about the idea of potentially her making money by going out to the park and doing tarot at the park and just, accepting donations. And I said, I wonder if, you'd get more if you had a Jamaican accent. I was just wondering. And I chuckled, and she said, oh no, that probably wouldn't be a good thing. And I was like, okay. And then later in the evening, that same day, we were sitting in a room. We were roommates in this hostel, and there were two other young ladies in the room. And one of the young ladies said, hey, maybe we should do a seance. And it reminded me of the chuckle we had earlier about using a Jamaican accent for doing tarot cards. And I said, hey, maybe I should be the one, and I made a comment. I said it would be hilarious, the white girl calling upon the spirits. And I put on a Jamaican accent and jokingly said, we call upon the spirits, and then I just stopped. And this woman I had built this friendship with stopped and said, okay, you need to stop. That's offensive. And I immediately felt even before she said it, I could feel the energy just was not positive coming from her, even though I still felt my energy was generally positive. And so I said, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be offensive. Can you help me understand, was it using the Jamaican accent, or was it the words that I said? And she just said, Stanford has a list of what's considered woke and what's not. And I said, okay, I was unaware of that, thank you. And then I went to work, looking for this list of non-woke language. And it was really hard to find because they took down the website. They did away with the list after only a few days. But I looked up as many examples as I could. But anyway, I wanted to pause there because I wanted to talk about how we all come with our perspective of what's right and wrong, good and bad, normal, not normal, based upon our personal life experience. And again, that's limited to just our own experience. And how throughout our lives, sometimes we build unconscious insecurities, things that we are uncomfortable with, or things that we assume are going to end up bad or have bad intention, can trigger an amygdala response of being in danger or needing to fight back. And so these underlying insecurities, assumptions, beliefs based upon our perspective can all turn a good intended exchange into a battleground of misunderstanding based upon our individual perspectives and how we're approaching a situation. So how did I handle the situations? Well, I already talked about how I handled the situation with the Hispanic man. And I'm about halfway through how I handled things with this new friend of mine. I did apologize immediately. I made it clear that I had not intended any offense at all. That I just thought it would be silly in my mind to see an SNL type scenario of a white girl putting on a Jamaican accent and calling upon the spirits. And I had no intention of making light of or mocking the Jamaican people or voodoo or anyone who practices voodoo or calls upon spirits. I believe in the energy of all of that, and so I definitely am not going to mock a group of people or their beliefs. I then, after researching everything I could find on Stanford's list of unwoke topics, words, phrases, still was trying to figure out exactly how, she could have perceived this. And that's what I came up with, was that perhaps she thought I was mocking their culture or mocking the Jamaican people and or those that practice voodoo. And so I decided the best thing I could do at that point was to, in a sense, send my energy toward the Jamaican people and those that practice voodoo. So I communicated energetically with those people, and I apologized if I had in any way negatively affected them, and explained my intent. And I immediately felt forgiveness. I immediately felt an acceptance from them, as I expressed that I believed that we as humans are all part of the same community, and that we all are really truly, whether or not we have the knowledge of each other, we really are one and the same, and that we're trying to create the best world and best life. So we as a community are working together, and I expressed that that's what I wanted. So I felt that they were all okay with this, but I could still feel her bitterness toward me, even though my energy had been cleared, and even though I'd done everything I could to rectify the situation, including the energy work and rebalancing my own emotions involving her, because when you have a negative exchange, sometimes when you see that person again, you have that automatic, ooh, like, what do I do? What do I say? Are we okay? And I had already, rectified my emotional stance toward her. But I could still feel her bitterness toward me. She wouldn't look at me, she wouldn't talk to me, even though I'd ask her how she was doing, how was your day, and things like that. She just kind of brushed me off. And so, because I could still feel the impact of her energy toward me, I could feel the impact of her emotions in the form of energy toward me, I decided that, having done everything I felt that I could, the best thing I could do to keep the negativity away from me was to create an energy bubble around me that was going to deflect her negative energy. Because I can't do anything to help her with her energy or her emotional work for her. She'll have to deal with whatever beliefs or perspectives or insecurities she has in her own time when she's ready to, because that's not something I can do for her, especially after apologizing and doing everything I could do. So now you're probably thinking, well, everyone has their own perspective, and how come it's not okay for this Hispanic man with his perspective that it's appropriate behavior to approach a woman like this? How come that's wrong? And my perspective of being able to have this humorous moment, how could I be right but he could be wrong in this offensive approach? It sounds like you're being self-justifying, Heather. And I thought about that too. I thought about, what was the difference between the two? How come it was offensive for him to actually done that and not offensive for me necessarily? And this is what I determined. The difference between the two situations is intention. because our intention will automatically influence the energy that we come into the situation, bring into the situation, and that will automatically impact the emotions that are felt in that situation. So we have emotions that are coming from intention, and we have emotions coming from our past experiences and our assumptions and possible insecurities about a situation. And both of these directly impact our energy. So the difference is that my intention was to make fun of the white girl in a Jamaican accent, something that you don't expect to hear or see. Like I said, to me, in my mind, my perspective was that it would be a crazy, funny SNL skit that I could see some of the most popular women on SNL doing this kind of a skit in a Jamaican accent, calling upon the spirits. And it would be funny to me because that's just strange that a white girl is doing this. You don't expect that. You don't expect the accent. You don't expect them to call upon the spirits. You don't. And have, the rest of the people in the circle be black women, because it just so happened that everybody else in my room, including this new acquaintance of mine, were black women. And all of us have been getting along. All of us were just fine with each other. And so until that moment, and that's something else I wanted to mention, was that when the energy in the room changed, and she told me that I was being offensive, the energy coming from both of the other women in the room remained light, remained neutral or positive. The only negative energy I felt in the room came from this one particular individual. And so I knew at that moment that that this one individual found it offensive. And that probably was, bringing her experience and her perspective into the situation, and her seeing it as being culturally offensive, and not understanding that my humor was coming from mocking the white girl, laughing at the white girl. Anyway, those were some things I wanted to mention in the video today, and I'm hoping that that we can see how people with different perspectives and different experiences, they can either bring some insecurities and assumptions and lack of perspective in, and that can cause some problems. Or we could have individuals that bring in their perspective of what's inappropriate, and at the same time how we can potentially approach different situations. On the one hand, the energy of the intention of the Hispanic man was very negative. It was I felt like I had been made dirty just by being close to him, even though he never touched me. I felt like I had somehow been physically tainted in some way, even though he had never touched me, because of the energy that he brought. The intention he had was not pure, it was not positive, and that brought the energy and the emotion, the heaviness, and that feeling I had initially when I very first saw him. My body knew that the energy, the intention was bad. So we have the negative intention that's brought in, and you have positive intention that's brought in. And if you have negative intention that's brought in, it's going to lead to just negativity. If you have positive intention that's brought in, and someone gets offended, then chances are it may be on their end with their perspective and their experiences. And that's something that we can't solve for them. It's something that they're going to have to work through when they're ready to work through. But either way, there are good and appropriate approaches to those who have the negative intention, the negative energy, to set an expectation of what's appropriate and what's not. And there is an appropriate response for those who are offended when the intention was meant to be positive. So if you have any questions, let me know. If you have any thoughts about how I could have handled it better, let me know. I try always to be fair and to be emotionally intelligent about how I approach things. So if you have anything that you want to share, feel free. Thanks. Have a great day.